Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
A modern witch's spoken word grimoire.
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense
Your cauldron and your crystals
and join us
as we get
back on the broomstick.
Hi, and welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla, and welcome to part 3 of our 5-part elemental series. This episode focuses on the element of fire. Fire is bold, passionate, transformative, and working with the energy of fire can help give your practice that extra energy boost you may have been looking for.
And getting super excited about the fire, the passion, and I just can't help it. Fire, fire, fire. I'm Chelle. And Layla, I would like to talk and open this episode with a brief conversation about the moon. Can we talk about the moon for a minute?
Sure, we can talk about the moon. We can absolutely talk about the moon for a minute. I'm glad you brought up the moon because I have an interesting coincidence coming up in my life involving the upcoming new moon, actually.
Now, before you tell me about your coincidence, funny you mentioned the new moon. So, prior to us getting on, you mentioned something that I had never heard of, and I would like to talk about this with the people. So, people, we're going to discuss what is a black moon?
All right, so I was on the old Reddits, and actually later in the episode, I have a question that someone on the Back on the Broomstick subreddit asked, and we'll talk about that. But I saw a bunch of people asking, what are you going to be doing for the black moon?
What is a black moon? Like, am I this old right now? Because I'm feeling old because I'm not sure what's going on.
I was confused myself. I thought, black moon, dark moon, new moon. Maybe they're just talking about the new moon. And I was kind of right. They are talking about the new moon.
So, black moon, explain this to me because I'm having a
Yeah.
hard time wrapping my head around it.
All right, I had to look this one up because I too had never heard of a black moon before. And everyone's saying that this is very special and very powerful. And I'm still not exactly sure why. So if any of my astrology friends out there know if this actually does indeed make this new moon kind of special, email us.
Actually, I happen to know an astrology guy, and he happens to be a listener. So I'm gonna hit my buddy Tim up and ask him what is the deal with this black moon?
I did look this up, and on earthsky.org, I did find
Good
that
website.
black moon is a relatively new term. This came up probably in the 1980s, and it may have started as a Wiccan thing.
But wait, we were Wiccans in the 90s, and I still never have heard of a black moon.
The guess is that possibly Wiccans in the 80s coined black moon to mean the second new moon in a month, much like a blue moon. You've heard of a blue moon, right,
I know
Shel?
what a blue moon is.
Tell the people what a blue moon is, just in case they don't know.
According to my grandmother, it was the only time I was good.
Once in A, right?
Once in a. A blue moon is when there is 13 full moons within the 12-month period, and that 13th moon is the blue moon.
Yes, that is one definition of a blue moon. And it was also misrepresented back in the 40s, 1940s, I believe. It was mistakenly thought to be the second full moon in a month. So now sometimes people will say a blue moon is the second full moon in a month. So they're
I'd
both
roll with
kind of
it.
right. Yeah, yeah. That's colloquially what people say a blue
Wait,
moon
is that
is.
a word?
Colloquially, yes.
Okay. But yeah, so I could see it. Okay.
So that's one of the possible meanings, but that's not what this particular black moon is. One of the other definitions is a seasonal black moon, which happens about every 33 months, according to Earth Sky. They say that it's the third of 4 new moons in a season, only happens every 33 months, and that's the one that's happening this particular August 23rd.
So we're not sure if there's any additional magical oomph to this, is what we're saying.
That's right. I would say that it still has the same qualities as any new moon would. That's when you're going to want to set your intentions. That's what you're going to want to start new things. Sometimes that can be when you send stuff off to the void, particularly if you got that moment of the dark moon exactly. Sometimes it's great to do that.
So maybe this special event just means that that energy is amplified similar to a blue moon.
Yeah.
So I guess I would treat it as the blue moon of dark moons.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe it's special, maybe it's not. You'll have to go out on that night or around that night and feel that energy for yourself and see if it feels any extra specially to you. I know I'll be out checking it out.
I feel like the moon is just always special, to be honest.
Absolutely. Now, what I found cool is that my new bestie Shannon and I, that are starting the community in Corning, New York, Crystal City Circle, we picked our meet and greet day as August 23rd. And it just so happens to be the day that a local group is doing a pagan type moonlight oddities market in the area. And it's the black moon, new moon. So we're kind of excited about that. I think that just means auspicious beginnings. I'm very excited to start something new on the new moon.
Now, you had to say it, so I just want you to quick tell the peoples where and how they can be a part of this group.
If you're in North Central Pennsylvania or the southern tier of New York in the Corning, New York area, we have started a community. This is going to be a learning class, a meet and greet, a pagan get together the first Saturday of every month. Although in September we're starting the second Saturday, but the first meeting is August 23rd, and it's just kind of a meet and greet, get to know people, and it'll be at the Southeast Steuben County Library in Corning. We will also be having rituals, sabbats, and espits at the UU Church in Big Flats as well. So we're going to be doing all sorts of things. There's some local businesses that might get involved. Shell might get involved. We're going to have all sorts of workshops. We're going to be doing some great things in the area.
I have a feeling I'll make a surprise appearance now and again.
You better.
I will. You know I will.
It wouldn't be the same without you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll be posting stuff on our socials. So if folks are looking to catch that in person, please do, because I'm super jelly that I can't. And definitely send a message if you want to reach out to Layla or the Crystal City Circle.
Yeah, crystalcitycircle at gmail.com. We also do have a Facebook group if you are in the area and want to join that as well. So it's pretty cool. I'm excited. New things are happening.
So I'm seeing red. I'm seeing orange. What's that mean? Let's
Ooh,
talk fire.
and fire is fabulous for this topic because, it's that fire under your ass that gets you going, right? It's that fire of determination. It's the passion to start new things. So how fitting.
Actually, now that you say that, that is damn fitting.
More synchronicities. It just means more good things, more wonderful, lucky things.
Right.
Fire itself has been something that people have reached for literally thousands of years. Fire came to people. We learned how to cook food. We
It
learned
makes
how
me
to heat our
warm.
homes. Exactly. Back in caveman days, we learned that it kept the scary things in the nighttime away. We could use it to defend our homes. We could use it to defend our families. We could use it to keep ourselves warm in the wintertime so that Meemaw doesn't freeze to death. And it made a difference and it was magical. That difference was so big, it was magical to people. It was powerful.
Fire was life. Fire is life.
And fire was protection and it banished evil. And it was very clear to see that this magical creature, this creation that breathed and eats and grows, would protect me if I was careful with it. And that's the other cool thing about fire is of the four basic elements, fire is the only one that will hurt you if you touch it.
Yep. But it can also protect you. It can also cleanse you. Fire, it's kind of a go-to.
And the other thing with fire is it's the only one that's not easily found in nature. Air's everywhere, water, earth, everywhere. Fire requires something special. It requires lightning, it requires friction, it requires something extra. And that's why there's a lot of myths involved with fire as well. All the stories about how people got fire involve tricking a god, usually, or some type of theft.
Really?
Prometheus. Yeah, isn't that wild? Prometheus in Greek myths, he stole it from the gods. He was kind of mad at them anyways, because I think they killed all his family or something. And he brought
Jerks.
it, right? So he brought it to humans, even though he was punished greatly for it for eternity, for bringing fire to humanity. There's a lot of Native American legends. In Cherokee legends, Grandmother Spider, I think a couple other creatures try to steal fire, but grandmother spider is able to steal it and puts it in a clay pot and brings it down to people and gives it to them so that they can be warm through the winter.
I love that.
Isn't that cool? It's all over the world. There are so many, but they're all involved theft, trickery of some kind. But you had to take fire because fire doesn't just exist. If you get lucky, ancient people might have stumbled across a tree that had been struck by lightning that had fire, but you don't usually just stumble across fire. It's special, it's magical.
We've talked about earth. Earth is beneath our feet. We've talked about air. Air is all around us. It's what we breathe. But fire is something we must seek out, we must obtain. It's not just there.
Yeah, and in your tradition, in your coven's tradition is Celtic, and
Correct.
they do things in threes. It's the sky, the sea, and the land, and all the fire festivals.
Well.
Fire is still super, super important, even in that tradition.
I think all of the elements are extremely important in every tradition, but I think maybe different traditions, as they should, kind of put different emphasis on what is, I guess, what is their priority might not be the right way to say it, but kind of what they were going through at the time. You look at what the Native Americans were going through isn't necessarily the same as, say, what the Vikings were going through, different climate, different area, different landscape. So there are going to be ones that kind of put more focus on one or two or three more so than another one or two or three.
But interesting that even with all of those differences, they all still have similar stories of someone thieving fire from the gods to bring to people. I think that's really cool that that's a common thread.
Instead of stealing fire, why don't we talk about working with fire?
Yeah. So this is why fire has been so fascinating to people. They used it for protection. It has protective qualities because you know that if you light a candle in a dark room, it immediately feels warmer and safer and a little nicer.
But it also takes away the shadows. It takes away that mystery. So you get that warmth from it, but you get that illumination from it. You can do divination with it. There's a lot to be garnered from fire. So I was thinking, when we had talked about fire was our next topic, I was like, geez, where am I going to take this conversation with fire? Because I always start with candle magic.
Candle magic with fire is so accessible and it's so potent. There's so much you can do with it.
Well, and I think the thing I like about fire magic the most, and you hit the nail on the head with accessible. I know we have a lot of folks that are still inside the broom closet. They have to be cognizant of who knows, what they're doing and such. And you can burn a candle and have it be very non-witchy for an
Right.
outsider to see. And you can put a lot of intention into that. You can add herbs, you can put sigils on it, whatever the case may be. You can do a lot of magic with a candle without someone in the outside world knowing what you're doing. So I find it to be super accessible is a means to connect with magic and connect with the fire element or just elemental magic in general. Fire and candles to me is a really big go-to.
The energies that it brings are a lot that we had mentioned earlier. It's the passion, it's drive, it's transformation, which is a good one to talk about. Earth transforms things too, and that's fun on a lot of wheels. Like earth is north and fire is south, like they're in balance with each other, and they're both transformative elements. But earth transforms things really, really slowly.
I was just going to say, I think whichever you choose to use for transformation is going to depend on how quickly you need that transformation, because Earth is going to be the slow roll, the slow, painful roll, whereas fire transformation, that shit's happening in an instant, in an
Yeah.
absolute instant. And when you transform, in my opinion, when you transform with Earth energies, it's a more gentle transformation. Whereas when you transform with fire energies, that shit's gonna hurt, but the job's gonna get done in a quick like fashion. Sometimes you got to get burned to move forward, and fire can kind of give you that.
Sometimes the forest that burned down that can clear away what was holding it back, and then new growth can start again. It is that destructive and creative force.
It's a destructive cleansing, and sometimes we all need a little destructive cleansing in our lives. I think that sometimes fire is the most blunt element to work with. You know, you work with water, it's very gentle. Earth is very calming, but fire is very pointed and to the point and get the job done. And, no sugarcoating things, no beating around the bush. It's just point A to point B with nothing holding you back in the middle. Very pointed energy.
And it's one of those that you have to respect because
Yes.
that transformative purifying can switch to destructive,
Destruction.
yeah, and painful in an instant if the control and the respect isn't there.
And ironically enough, that's kind of part of the association I give it when it comes to, passion, love, and lust, which can oftentimes be associated with fire because passion, love, and lust can be the greatest and the worst. We've all
Absolutely.
been there. We've all been there.
You're
There.
right. They
We've
can
all
bring
been
you to the heights of the mountain. You can be so high and so happy, and it can drop you to the depths of despair. So, yeah,
It can bring it to your knees and rip the soul out of your nostrils.
that's very descriptive, Shell.
It really is. I'm all for visuals
I can
here.
tell you've been there. You've been there.
But fire can also then, is a part of that transformation, kind of burn away that stuff you need to shed, that stuff
Yeah.
you need to get behind you. You need to get past it. You need to move forward. And that transformative fire can also, as much as it can kind of burn you, it can then, like you said, clear the way for bigger, better, and greater.
Transformation is not always easy and it's not always slow.
Now, I like to turn everything back to divination. So, if you're ever in a pinch and you don't have a deck of tarot cards, you don't have your oracle deck, you don't have your runes or whatever it is that you use, you can always fall back on fire as well as a form of divination. And I guess where my point in saying this is I've sometimes looked at the element of fire as a gateway between this world and the other world. And divination is a good way to utilize the element of fire to kind of cross over that gateway and as you would if you were doing a reading or throwing runes or whatever divination you use, just as you would scry in a mirror. And I know we've done episodes where we've talked about mirror scrying and flame is equally useful and effective, and because of that, fire is an element that I see as a bridge between the worlds.
I love that you called it a portal or a bridge because fire is one of those things that it's very easy for people to get into an alpha state. Like, how often have you caught yourself or have you seen someone stare into a fireplace or stare into a campfire or a candle flame? It's so easy to just kind of unfocus your gaze and get lost in the moment and zone out.
Sounds like a good Saturday night to me.
Before you know it, you've been staring into that fire and just all these things are popping into your head, just kind of softly here and there. And you don't even know where your brain is going because it's so easy to get into that meditative state just by softly gazing into a fire.
And it's funny you mentioned like the campfire because my mind wasn't thinking that in the moment, but I can think back to many a time, and I know you've been in the same mental state where we were back in New York in our old community, and we were either sitting around that ritual fire or dancing around that ritual fire or drumming around that ritual fire, doing the same thing, being, kind of lost in the flicker of the flame. And there's been times where it's almost like, and obviously it's because it was a ritual fire in the atmosphere that we created right there around that fire. But you stare into that fire long enough, you do transport yourself to another place.
And all right, I'm going to tell a story.
I love stories.
I was going to save this for someday when we had Genital and Drew on the show to talk about Avalonian magic. But this is so fitting for here. I got to tell it now. Back in the day when I was a young witchling, I was the only witch that I knew for a long time. And then I went to Salem, Massachusetts, and I met some other witches. And I also managed to meet someone at my college. She and I started working together. And we decided we were going to do like a challenge before we dedicated ourselves. And I had a friend who had some land, and we hopped on a four-wheeler at night and we went driving across these fields. Now, this was, I don't know, early summer, I guess. And we're going across these fields, and a lot of them are separated by tree lines. So we come through these trees into an open field. And Shell, I have never seen so many fireflies in my entire life as I saw that night. It was thick. You almost had to swim through the fireflies to get through
Oh,
this
that
field.
must have been beautiful because sadly I was not that friend.
I had not met you yet, unfortunately. So we had to stop and just look at these fireflies. It was so magical. But we continued on and we got to the woods where we were going to spend the night. And they had a little tree house that was there, a little fire pit and everything. And we went off and did these little walks in the woods. And then we came back and we had some bread and cheese. We were being very witchy. And we built a little fire for the evening. And we decided we were going to continue the evening by calling to open Avalon. We wanted to open the gateway to Avalon. I don't know what we were thinking. We hadn't even planned this. It was like a spur of the moment thing. We were just like, oh, yeah, this sounds great. Let's do this.
Fuck around and find out.
Oh, we did too. Oh, my goodness. So we pulled in all these energies and we had this incense, like this loose incense we had created, and we tossed it in the fire as we're opening this gateway. And it was just a handful of some herbs. It wasn't even that much.
That's what she said.
That's was right. The fire got bigger. The flames got a lot higher, and it was very, very smoky, way
Well,
smokier.
obviously you were opening a damn gateway.
This is one of the things in my life that I still to this day have zero clue what actually happened. I have no explanation for this. So I'll get there. Hold on. So the flames seemed to get bigger, like we had thrown an extra log on the fire or something. And the smoke started pouring out of the fire. We kind of looked at each other. And when we looked back through the smoke on the other side of the fire, I could see what looked like 4 or 5 inch round lily pads. They looked almost like lily pads to me, glowing bright green. Single file going from where the path was just beyond our fire pit, curving off in between two trees where it disappeared. My jaw dropped. I had no idea what that could be. I looked at her and I saw that she was looking in the same area I was. Now, this friend was a little bit of a, tended to exaggerate things.
But I was just going to say, I actually, now that the more you tell this, I've actually heard this story and I heard it from the person you went with.
Yeah.
And I've actually heard it almost word for word how you're saying it from her.
Now, I was not going to say anything because I wanted to know for sure that she was seeing what I was seeing. She says, are you seeing green glowing lily pads on the other side of the fire? I was like, holy shit, yes, I do. And my first thought was, oh, damn, am I going to follow them? And then she goes, I'm not going. Are you going? And just right then I thought, if I go, I'm not coming back. And I said, no, I'm not going. Exactly then they disappeared.
Oh my God.
We ran over with our flashlights and could find nothing. No foxfire moss, no phosphorescent anything, no paint, no markings, no nothing. Neither of us had any clue what it had been. I still to this day, other than maybe we did open a gateway to Avalon,
I
I
think you
do
did.
not know what happened.
Because we actually have done that before, us, separate from this story. So I do believe that you probably did that day.
When we did it, I didn't see any green glowing lily pads then, unfortunately.
I
But
probably would have followed them, so it's a good thing we
right at
didn't.
that point, I was like, why didn't I go? But yeah, so that's one of those fire scrying things. Did we put ourselves in a hypnotic state and happen to see the same thing? Maybe. Did we open a portal to Avalon? Maybe.
Maybe. We'll never know.
But by looking into flames, by scrying in those flames, you can get yourself into an alternate state of mind. You can get yourself very easily into a meditative alpha state where then divination comes very, very clear. Do you have any particular ways you like to do fire divination?
It's gonna obviously depend on who, what, when, where, and why. If I am, say, out in the woods, like we had been, and you're just kind of it a ritual fire and it just starts coming to you, you just let it go. There's been times where I have purposefully, okay, let me see, let me have a conversation with the candle flame here. And, more often than not, if I'm doing that, I'm doing a candle flame. And a lot of it is just kind of feeling that energy of the fire. I know it hurts, but I generally, if I'm going to do something working with the element of fire, I will put my hand where you kind of brush your hand, where you maybe put it on the flame a little bit, kind of lick the flame, I guess is the best way to say it.
Let the flame lick you.
Let the flame lick me, but just kind of getting in tune with that life force energy, that heat. What does that heat mean? Are you bringing that heat to, your love life? Are you bringing that heat to divination? What are you bringing that into and kind of focusing in on that?
Yeah, that heat itself is energy that you can draw on, draw in to power your spell work.
That's why you don't have to visualize as much with fire, I don't think. With air, obviously, air's all around you, but you're like, am I feeling it? Am I feeling it? But with fire, there's something tangible there. It's something that you can feel that heat, you can see that flicker. You can't always feel that calmness in that, solidarity of the earth. There's dirt under your feet, but that's about it. You see that flicker of the fire and you feel all that energy emanating.
Yeah, the heat is so easy to feel and to draw in and to use that to power your spells or to power your divination if that's what you're doing. I know you're going to hate this, but I highly recommend any type of flame.
Journaling.
Yeah,
Journal with your flame.
any type of flame divination, have something to write with right there or have your phone on to record because sometimes, especially if I'm doing flame divination, I find it's very easy for me to go into trance with flame. So I don't like to use fire for general divination because I tend to go too deep with fire. It's super, super easy for me to get very, very close to that theta brainwave state where you're very much in a trance state.
I wouldn't be doing divination for others using flame.
I'm just saying that because of being in that deeper trance state, and that can happen very easily for some people, it's harder for me to remember what I said in a deeper trance state. So it's really nice to have someone to record you, or if you can write down, or have someone else write down whatever you say, because you might forget. It's almost like a dream state, and so those visions can quickly go out of your mind afterwards. So having a way to record it as soon as you can, either while you're in that trance state and getting those messages or immediately afterwards, is vital because it's so easy to forget when you kind of get in that very deep fire trance.
Are you literally trying to tell the listeners to get a journaling buddy?
Yes.
I figured it out. I figured out.
Now I'm telling you to double your journaling. Get a buddy to do it with you. No, no, it's just sometimes if you really that far deep into that trance state, if you really do get very deep, especially with something like fire divination, you might not be able to write it down yourself. You might be able to say it. So having something like your phone or whatever to record you or to have someone else write it down for you can be very helpful. So yeah, I guess I'm telling you to journal with a friend.
Now, just so we don't forget to kind of mention this, because we've talked about correspondences with all of the other elements that we've touched on so far. So I just want to talk a few minutes about some fire correspondences. Herb girl here, so I like to think of my fire herbs. And again, it's going to depend on what's my intent. Are we going rose petals and love? Are we going cayenne pepper, fire under your ass? What are some correspondences you kind of equate to the element of fire, not necessarily flame fire, but the element fire?
For herbs, I do like mints and peppers. Any mint and pepper. I like mint because there's a bite to it, but it's not as sharp
It's a
as a
good
pepper
bite.
can be.
It's a
Yeah.
good bite.
Yeah, so sometimes if you want just a little bit of a flame under your ass, or you want just a little bit of that bite, you want a little bit of boldness, you want a little bit of passion,
You need a nudge.
mint is good for that. You don't want the burn of pepper. But for stones, I like pyrite. Fool's gold is one of my favorites. I love that, partly because pyromania, pyrite, I don't know if they really have the same basis, but they sound the same, so I like it. Plus, it's sparkly. And also carnelian. Carnelian's one of my favorite firestones.
I love carnelian as a firestone.
I have a cool little spell pause for you using a carnelian shell.
Ooh, do tell, do tell, do tell.
Carnelian to me, it just screams fire, basically, even though it's a stone. So, one of the things you can do, have you ever been doing a spell where you have to burn a candle for a long time and you don't have time to burn it all the way down?
Yep, have.
You can take a carnelian and have it pause that spell for you. And the way you do it is you take the carnelian and you hold it up against the flame. You don't have to touch the flame, but hold it right next to the flame of the candle that you're burning and say, though flame be gone, the spell lives on. And then douse the flame with the carnelian and just set the carnelian there next to the candle. And the carnelian will hold the flame of the spell until you're able to come back and finish burning the spell.
I love that. I actually love that.
Isn't that great? It's the stone, it's that earth, right? It's that slow, it's going to hold it for you, but it's still the flame carnelian, so it can hold the energy of fire. So it'll pause that spell for you until you come back. Then just touch the stone to the candle wick and thank the stone for holding the flame and say the spell carries on, and then light the wick and off you go.
Now, I also want to mention for me, this is a me thing, on the altar, flame is flame, fire's fire, fire is south, south is red, flame, fire, south, red. Because people are like, well, what altar tool do you put in the south? Fire.
Anything red. I like to have swords and I like to have athames in the south. Some people might like to have wands in the south. I also don't mind. I am a convert. I have said in the past that I didn't like them, but I am now a convert to electric battery candles.
Sometimes we got to do what we got to do, and we've used them, and I mean, it's not a fire, we get it, but when you're trying to do a ritual at a hotel conference, it's that or nothing.
It's right.
So battery operated, here we come.
And they work fabulously. And I've used them several times on altars, and they are a wonderful representation.
But you know what? I feel that electricity is a form of the element of fire, and the battery is creating electrical charge. So, like, I can see it. Like, it's not the warmth and the flame that I'd like and love, but like, I get the whole battery, how you can associate the battery piece to
Yeah.
fire.
And if you can't have a flame, you can even bring up a fire on YouTube. And I think that works perfectly fine. It's not ideal, but it'll
You
work.
do what you gotta.
That's right. We can do what we got to do.
Use the tools you have at hand. Just try to put your TV at least in the south.
That's right. There you go. Okay, so I have an exercise for people to work with fire energy, to begin to feel fire energy.
Uh-huh.
And like a lot of these things, this one involves another element, again, the breath. So for this particular exercise, I do recommend that you use a real candle and a real flame. So make sure that you use all safety precautions with that and be in a safe, quiet place. You might want the room to be a little dim or a little dark. I mean, we are working with a candle flame here. And you want your focus to be directly on the flame. So by lowering the lights, you can eliminate a lot of the visual distractions around you, and it'll make it easier for you to keep your focus just on the flame. So sit in your space with the candle in front of you with your lighter or your matches, and take a few deep breaths to settle yourself, and then focus on the candle. And just think about flame and the energy of fire as being the reason that you're there. Take a deep, steadying breath in through your nose and imagine that air going to the fire in your belly, the fire at the center of you. Almost like a bellows, stoking that fire within a little bit. And then breathe out through your mouth and feel how that cool air that came in through your nose has transformed a little bit from the heat of your body and is just ever so slightly warmer. So once you feel centered, take your lighter and light the candle. You can say something if you want. You don't need to. It could just be, I call to the spirit of fire. I welcome you here in this teaching moment. But you can say whatever you want or nothing at all. Begin by looking at the flame. Just gently fix your gaze on the flame. Don't stare hard, just soft and steady. You're even allowed to blink, but just look at the flame. Notice it. Notice the colors. Look for that steady base that Chelle mentioned earlier. Look for the flickering blue, the flickering orange. Watch how it dances on the wick, how it breathes. Then, as you notice the flame flickering and shifting, pay attention to your breath and how close your breath is to that flame. So this time, as you inhale, I want you to intentionally exhale towards the flame. So as you're looking at this flickering flame, inhale and imagine that the warmth of that flame is coming in. And then as you exhale, carefully, you don't want to blow it out, but just gently Carefully exhale and notice as the flame moves in reaction to your breath. So the next time you do it with intention. Breathe in slowly to about a 4 count. So as you're breathe in the warmth of that flame, the energy, the creation, the safety, whatever energies you're feeling as you look at that flame. Breathe those positive energies in and watch and see if that affects the flame at all. And then breathe out gently to 6, 7, or 8 count. Again, don't blow the flame out, but just gently breathe out in the direction of the flame and breathe out and release stagnation, fear, doubt, any negative energies that you're holding within. Breathe them gently to the flame and then watch the flame flicker and move as it burns away that negative energy for you. So again, breathe in positivity, light, radiance, and then breathe out to that flame whatever you no longer need. Tension, exhaustion, apathy, fear. Just let it go. Feed that to the flame. You might begin to feel the flame at the core of your belly begin to warm up a little bit with this exercise. Begin to match the energy of the flame dancing on the candle in front of you. Once you start to feel that connection, once you start to feel that warmth, just breathe for a little bit with the candle. Just feel those energies, that bond between you and the flame as you both breathe in and out. And then just kind of let that go for a few minutes. 3, 5 minutes is fine. And then thank the flame. You can say whatever you want. If nothing else, fire loves boldness and honesty. So be bold, be honest, say whatever you want to the flame. Then thank the flame for its energy, for its lesson, for its light, and put out the candle. Now, some people have distinct ideas on how you should put out a candle. Some people say you should never blow out a candle because that's disrespecting the flame with air. They say you should always snuff it. But then there's people that say you should never snuff a candle because that's disrespecting the flame with earth. So maybe you should lick your fingers and snuff it. But oh wait, that's water. So I say use whatever implement will most safely let that flame go back to its elemental energy. Whatever way you like works just fine. So put out the candle and then journal or reflect on how you felt, on any insights or any thoughts that you had. Did you feel lit up in any way? Did you feel ready to burn away something? What projects or what new ideas are ready to ignite? So put all that in the journal, put it all down. And this is a simple exercise that you can do with the fire. Maybe you want to do it in the morning before you do your journaling or in the evening before you do your tarot pulls. But it's just a moment to work with the flame and to feel that fire energy. So do you have any other spells or anything like that that you like to do?
Spell work that I like to do is sometimes you just got to be done with stuff. And I'm a fan of writing things down and burning them. Maybe it's the pyro in me, I don't know. But, maybe you need to banish a thought or an idea or a person out of your life, and writing that down on a piece of paper or a bay leaf or whatever the case may be and burning it in that fire. There's something to be said for that, even if it just soothes my soul watching it go up in flames.
Yeah. Yeah. Wanting to get rid of something or banish something, there is nothing faster than fire.
Burn that shit.
And it's usually permanent. Whereas if you want someone out of your life and you put them in the freezer for a freezer spell,
You can always unthaw them.
that's right. You still got to deal with them at some point because they're in your freezer. But if you burn that paper, that connection is severed.
But that could be a thought or an idea or a pattern that you want to kick, or,
Right.
habits you're trying to get rid of. We know that I'm a smoker. Maybe I'm going to get to the point where I don't want to smoke anymore, and I'll write that shit down and burn it. There's something in my mind to be said for burning a thought, an idea, whatever the case may be, and having that flame release that thought or that spell out into the universe. And like you said, it's kind of like do this now, a very permanent thing. There's no going back. So like I said, I don't have like a phrase or anything to give folks, but if you're looking to put something behind you, to banish something, to be rid of something, write it down, put your own thought and words into it, speak to the candles, speak to the universe, talk about how you are looking to push this thing, thought, idea, person, whatever the case may be, out of your life, and then burn that shit.
That's also something that if we're talking about getting rid of spell components, if you have put out an offering or if you have done a spell, disposing of that spell in a proper way that matches the intention of your spell is important. And so sometimes at the end of the spell, you might want to burn all of the components.
Some way, the best way to release the spell is to burn that shit.
That's right. Remember to burn things safely. Only burn things that you,
Should be burning.
that's right. Only burn things you should be burning and be very cautious.
Do not create a 911 incident here, people.
Yeah, nobody needs that.
No.
Because again, fire requires the witch to pay attention. It requires your respect. It requires you to be careful. It requires you to pay attention.
As much as we think of fire in circle or, in spell work as a component of our magic, how I was raised. I would be remiss if I did not say if you have permanent ritual space, it might not hurt you to have a fire extinguisher on hand because you never know. My coven, love these folks. We have a fire blanket in our ritual area because you don't know. Fire is to be respected because fire decides what it cleanses sometimes, not you. And we do not ever want to see any harm come to any folks. So, fire extinguisher, fire blanket, have a bucket of water, be safe, people.
And I like to think that that transfers over to the magical realm as well.
It does.
Fire is one of those energies that if you're not in control of it, it will be in control of you. So working with it can be very powerful. It can bring you wonderful places. It can get you up off your butt. It can give you that energy. It can give you that boldness, that passion, that drive.
But it could take you down too.
It'll burn you out
Yep.
if you're not careful. If you put too much passion into a project, you might not be able to finish it. You might find that you've put so much energy into it and it's not going anywhere. Or maybe you put all that energy into this project and now you don't have energy for anything else. Fire for anything else or to finish the project. Fire can quickly go from this amazing, beautiful bonfire to an, oh shit, that thing is out of control and consuming everything.
So, what you're saying is you need a literal and a spiritual fire blanket with you.
That's right. Just like if you're going to be spinning poi at a festival or spinning fire, you always have a spotter, all those good metaphors.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go. Magically.
like a journaling buddy.
Oh gosh, yes. You need a fire buddy and a journaling buddy. Lots of buddies. We all need buddies. Speaking of buddies, I'm going to completely derail this and I'm going to go to a Reddit question for you, Chelle.
Okay, lay it on me.
In our subreddit, Waxing Moon 13 was talking about the elemental series that we've been doing here. And they said that they were curious how we, as two air signs, connect to each of the elements.
Sometimes painfully.
My first thought was to my beloved husband of 25 years. He's an earth element. He's a Taurus. And he grounds my airy ass perfectly and keeps me in balance. I do think I tend to work with earth a lot, more so even than air, I think. I like the groundedness and the earthiness, the centeredness of that element. So I work with that one pretty good. But
Funny story. So I'm an air sign. Air is probably the one I have the hardest time connecting with. It's almost like I am like an alien to my association here. And air is associated with east. East is associated with yellow. Yellow is like my least favorite color. Like everything that has to do with air, like somehow it's difficult for me. It's difficult. I feel like I was like my Gemini twin was a fire sign.
the first time I called an element in public was East Air for the pagan community that we both worked with. And I thought that was very fitting and very cool. But air to me seems almost too easy. So I also tend to avoid it a little bit just because it feels like cheating. It's just easy.
I've always been a fan generally of either earth in the north or west water. Kind of that roots in the ground, my feet are dug in, that solid, that oak tree in the woods kind of thing.
My husband.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I think as air signs, I think we both connect to earth very strongly because we need that groundedness. I think that really helps to balance us.
But with West and water, I feel that ebb and flow. That ebb and flow I think is ingrained in me with for
Yeah.
being a non-water sign.
Yeah, I say for water, I think I go both ways. Like either I'm an emotional mess or I'm that deep subconscious theta trance hedge rider. It's one or the other for me, I think.
I've always been okay with fire as well. And in the South, I've had a problem with East. I always have. We generally would call in familiars, animal familiars and such, as we called quarters. Like, I would even have a hard time with like those associations with East. I'd be like, birds, feathered creatures scare me. I don't know what my issue is with all things East.
All right, fire. So working with fire seems to come really easily for most people, and I am no different. The emotions, I think, and the correspondences of fire are powerful, and they're easy to see and feel. Emotions like anger are associated with fire. And anger is often the very first thing that we feel in a scary or frustrating situation because it's quick, it's easy. And sometimes in a dangerous situation, that anger, that quick action can save your life. But those quick, fiery emotions are very often like a fire hose, a literal flamethrower, an erupting volcano with no control. And especially as an air sign, I admit I'm a little quick to be angry sometimes. So, working with that fire in a productive way takes time and dedication so that you can pull in all the energy of that raging inferno, fine tune it and direct it, and make it a laser.
And I agree, but I think you'll recall a time way back when I spent some time working with Pele.
Hmm.
And, I am very, very familiar with the explosive element that fire can bring into life. And I think that sometimes with fire, I almost look at it as the calm within the chaos because fire can be very chaotic. And when you look at a flame, the outside of that flame is dancing around chaotically, but that inner white core is steady and steadfast in the middle while all of the rest is dancing around. So sometimes there is some peace to be found in the chaos. For fire to thrive, it needs air. So air and fire are always kind of, I think, closely associated because of that piece of for one to fully thrive, it does require the other.
It's also easy to raise energy for fire without using fire. You
Right.
can run, you can dance, you can jog. If you get your heart rate up, if you get a little sweaty, if you can raise that heat of your body, you've raised that energy of fire. It just makes it very accessible that way.
And it's also a easy visualization for a lot of people because a lot of people, because you've heard that fire in your belly, that's a phrase
Yeah.
people have heard throughout life for a long time. So they can kind of, oh, I get what you're saying, that fire within. So I think that sometimes visualizing fire without fire tends to be easier for people.
Yeah, and from the time we're little, one of the first things we're told not to touch is don't touch fire, don't play with matches, that kind of thing. You're taught to respect it because it's dangerous. But at the same time, we have that ancient knowledge that it's what keeps us safe. I think that's another reason why people can scry into a campfire so easily because that primitive brain says, oh, there's a fire here. This fire will keep me safe and warm and protected. And so it's easier to kind of slip into that subconscious meditating brain.
Fire is very, very life and death.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on that note,
Now, we want to mention one thing more before we go. We are going to re-mention we've got a contest. We've got a contest. Layla, let's talk about our contest.
because we love mail so much and we love this coming spooky season, we've decided to have a Seasons of the Witch giveaway.
Because we also love you just as much.
That's right. Anyone who sends us mail to our P.O. box that is postmarked between August 8th and October 1st will get an entry into our drawing.
What happens if they're a benefactor, Layla?
If they're a benefactor, they are automatically entered. And if you're a benefactor and you send in mail, you can get 2 entries, but only benefactors are allowed to have multiple entries. Everyone else can only enter one enter per person. On October 10th, we will take all of the eligible entries and we will do a random drawing, and one lucky winner will win the Seasons of the Witch Samhain Oracle.
So send us mail, drop us a line, send us a letter, send us a postcard. You need to actually include your name and address because if we pick you as a winner, like we need to know where to send this to you. So we are going to need a clear name and address in case you are the winner. But you know what? Layla and I, literally, it's the two of us. We do everything involving this show. We are not taking your address and doing anything with it. I promise you that. It is for this purpose only. But send us something and I love getting mail. I love going to the P.O. box. It's such a thrill when we get stuff.
It is a lot of fun. This giveaway is void where prohibited, and only eligible entries will be counted in the drawing. For the full official rules, please see our website, backonthebroomstick.com, or click on the link in the show description of any of our Elemental series episodes. And in the meantime, we are going to continue with this Elemental series. We have 2 more coming up, Water and Spirit. And of course, we will have the Fire meditation coming out in a few days. So keep an eye out for that.
I'm really excited because I think that we're saving the best fun too for last.
I think so.
Not that I'm giving any elements preference, but
Chelle has favorites.
I have favorites. And it's not air.
It's not air. Tune in next week for one of Chelle's favorites. And in the meantime, stay wise, stay wicked.
And don't get burned, but keep it witchy.